Musoorie has always been a town of mists and moods. The clouds often descend from the heavens to embrace the deodar-clad hills, wrapping everything in a soft white blanket. But there is one fog that is different, one that the old-timers speak of in hushed tones. They call it the smiling fog. It doesn't just roll in, it arrives with a purpose, a presence. It is not the usual cold, damp mist that chills you to the bone. No, this one carries a strange, almost inviting warmth. It swirls with an intelligence, a life of its own, and those who have seen it swear they can see faint, smiling faces forming and dissolving within its milky depths. It is a phenomenon as old as the hills themselves, a story passed from one generation to the next. The smiling fog is not a daily visitor. It chooses its own time, often appearing on afternoons when the sun has been particularly bright, as if to offer a gentle relief. It glides silently through the winding lanes of Landar and spills over the slopes of Camel's Back Road. The air grows still, the birds stop their chirping, and a peculiar humming sound seems to emanate from the very heart of the mist. It is a sound that is not quite music, but a low, resonant thrum that vibrates deep within your chest. The locals, wise to its ways, will often hurry indoors, pulling their shutters tight. They know that to be caught in its embrace is to risk changing forever. It is a beautiful and terrifying spectacle, a true enigma of the hills. This is not the fog of London or the sea mists of the coast. This is a mountain fog, born of the high Himalayas, and it carries with it the secrets of those ancient peaks. The smiles it shows are not always kind. Some are gentle, like a mother's, while others are wide and unsettling, like the grin of a mischievous spirit. The old shopkeeper near Picture Palace, Mr. Gupta, once told me that the fog is a collector of memories. It gathers the lingering joys and sorrows of everyone who has ever walked these hills, and it replays them in its swirling dance. He said it smiles because it knows all our stories, our hidden fears, and our deepest longings. You can feel its approach long before you see it. The temperature drops, but your skin prickles with a strange warmth, a deceptive coziness that lulls you into a false sense of security. The world outside your window pane seems to dissolve into a formless white void. It is in these moments that the imagination takes flight, and the line between what is real and what is merely a trick of the light begins to blur. The is more than just weather. It is an experience, a living, breathing entity that has haunted the Queen of the Hills for as long as anyone can remember. It is a part of Musoorie's very soul, a beautiful yet unsettling mystery that a simple man like me can only observe and wonder about. The stories about those who have ventured into the smiling fog are as plentiful as the rhododendrons in spring. There was the young artist, a tourist from Delhi, who set up his easel near Lal Tiba, hoping to capture the mist on his canvas. He was warned, of course, but he laughed it off as local superstition. The fog rolled in, thick and swift, swallowing him whole. When it finally receded hours later, he was found sitting exactly where he was, his brush still in hand. He was unharmed, but his eyes held a distant, vacant look. He never spoke another word about what he saw, but he spent the rest of his days painting nothing but swirling white canvases, each with a faint, almost imperceptible smile hidden in the strokes. Then there is the sad tale of the newlywed couple who went for a romantic walk along the deserted pathways near Balo Ganj. They were hand in hand, lost in their own world when they descended. The husband later recounted that they heard a beautiful humming melody coming from deep within the mist. His wife, entranced, said she saw her grandmother's face smiling at her, beckoning her closer. She let go of his hand and took a few steps into the thick white curtain. Just for a moment, he said. When he called out her name, there was no answer. A frantic search was launched, but she was never seen again. Some say she is a part of the fog now, her happy smile forever preserved in its ethereal embrace. Not all encounters are so tragic. Some are just plain strange. Old Mrs. D'Souza, who has lived in her cottage near St. Paul's Church for over 60 years, claims to have regular conversations with the fog. She says it brings her messages from her late husband. She sits on her veranda with a cup of tea. and as the smiling mist curls around her ankles, she speaks to it as if it were an old friend. She insists it whispers back, sharing memories of their life together. The other townsfolk think she is simply eccentric, a lonely old woman lost in her memories. But when you see the look of pure, unadulterated peace on her face after one of her chats, you can't help but wonder if there is some truth to her claims. And what of those who are simply lost for a few minutes? A group of schoolboys playing cricket in the grounds of their boarding school were once enveloped by it. They huddled together, frightened, as they saw faces, some familiar, some strange, leering at them from the vapor. They felt a mix of intense cold and a comforting warmth wash over them. When the fog lifted, they were all accounted for, but they were quieter, more thoughtful. They no longer played with the same reckless abandon. They had seen something in that mist that had aged them beyond their years. The fog had touched them, and in doing so, had left a permanent, invisible mark upon their young souls, a secret they would carry with them forever. It was a crisp afternoon in late October. I was taking my usual walk from my home in Landour towards Shah Dukhan, hoping for a good cup of tea and some buttered toast. The sky was a brilliant cloudless blue, and the air was filled with the scent of pine. I had heard the stories, of course, but had never given them much credence. To me, fog was just fog. But that day, as I rounded a bend, I saw it. It wasn't rolling down the hill. It was rising from the valley, a thick, pearlescent wall of white. It moved with an unnatural speed, and as it came closer, I felt that strange, contradictory sensation, a deep chill in the air, yet a peculiar warmth on my skin. Before I could even think of turning back, it was upon me. The world vanished. The familiar deodars, the winding road, the distant cottages, all were gone. I was suspended in a silent white infinity. The silence, however, did not last long. A low humming started, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was then that I saw them. Faintly at first, then with startling clarity, faces began to form in the swirling vapor. There were men, women, and children, their features shifting and melting into one another. And they were all smiling. Some smiles were gentle and kind, others were wide and mocking, their eyes full of a knowledge I could not comprehend. I stood frozen, not with fear, but with a profound sense of awe. I felt a gentle tug on my sleeve, though there was no one there. A child's laughter echoed softly to my left. I could smell the distinct fragrance of jasmine, a flower long out of season. It felt as if I was standing in a place between worlds, a crossroads of spirits and memories. I saw the face of an old friend I had not thought of in years, his familiar grin bringing a lump to my throat. The fog was not just showing me things. It was reaching into my own mind, pulling out forgotten moments and lost faces, giving them a fleeting, ghostly form. Just as suddenly as it had arrived, it began to recede. The humming faded, the faces dissolved, and the familiar shapes of the trees started to reappear, their leaves dripping with moisture. The entire experience could not have lasted more than a few minutes, but it felt like an eternity. I was left standing alone on the wet road, my heart pounding in my chest. The air was cold now, genuinely cold, and the strange warmth was gone. I never made it to Shah Dukhan that day. I turned around and walked home, my mind reeling. I had met and its haunting silent smile had been etched not just in my memory, but somewhere deeper inside my soul. I left Musoorie a few weeks after that encounter, heading down to the plains for the winter as I often do. But this time, something was different. The hills, the fog, the smiling faces, they were supposed to stay behind, confined to their mountain realm. Yet they followed me. I would be sitting in my quiet study in Dehradun, staring out at the clear sunny sky, and for a fleeting moment, I would see it. A wisp of mist forming at the edge of my vision, a faint smile materializing in the steam rising from my morning cup of tea. It was a trick of the light, I told myself, a figment of an overactive imagination. The humming returned as well, but only in moments of complete silence. It was a low, almost subsonic thrum that I felt more than heard. It would come in the dead of night, waking me from my sleep, and I would lie there in the darkness listening, my body remembering that strange warmth and chill. I found myself becoming more withdrawn, more solitary. I would catch my own reflection in a window pane and see not my own tired face, but for a split second, one of those ethereal, smiling visages from the fog. The experience had unsettled me in a way that no ghost story or dark night ever had before. Even now, months later, and far from the mountains, the feeling has not entirely left me. The world no longer seems as solid as it once did. I find myself looking for faces in the clouds, in the patterns of raindrops on a window, in the smoke from a neighbor's chimney. The fog of Musoorie had shown me that the veil between what we know and what we don't is incredibly thin, and that sometimes it smiles back at us. It is a haunting knowledge to carry, this understanding that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, only experienced. The smiling fog is not just a weather pattern, it is a state of being. And so, here I sit, writing these words on this clear day of June 13th, 2025. The sun is bright, and there isn't a cloud in sight. But as I look up from my page, I see it. There, in the reflection on my own spectacle lenses, is a tiny swirling wisp of white. It is faint, almost not there at all, but I can see it. And within that tiny wisp, I can see a microscopic, familiar, and utterly unnerving smile. It seems that does not need the mountains to find me. Its smile is everywhere now, waiting patiently in the corners of my sight, a constant silent reminder of that day on the lonely mountain road.